In this section, you'll open review the user's starter project. Let's get an overview of the user starter project. We'll be reviewing the PubSpec dependencies by adding the local shared package that you previously created, how to add the assets dependencies so that we can show the image or images. We're going to be reviewing the user starter project, the main Dart file, and we'll see how we can define light and dark mode and automatically switches between according to the system's device. The helpers folder, the API URL, where you will define a global constant for what the API, RESTful APIs URL will be. The model, the user model, the JSON file, the format that it's in, and the different classes to handle the JSON imported information. Now, next, we're going to do live coding review. All right, let's review the user starter project. So let's start with the PubSpec YAML file. What we're going to do here under shared, right? We're going to import the shared project. And the way you do it, you put shared path, because this is not a published package. It's actually on a local drive. So the dot means go back one folder out. We do the slash. You can see there's the shared package. And that's how you enter that in. And let's scroll down. The other item that we have in our PubSpec YAML, the assets images folder, which you will see under here, which is basically the user's image that we'll have on the header above the list of users. And next, let's look at the main Dart file. This is the entry point. We have the debug show checked mode banner equals to false, so it doesn't show the debug banner. And we have the themes, the light theme and the dark theme. And the theme mode is according to system. Now, if you ever want to change it to a particular one, you could say, hey, I want it to be light, I want it to be dark, and so on. But we will leave it to systems. And our home is basically the user viewer, and I'll show you, give you a peek. Right now, it's just a placeholder for a stateful widget. In the next video, live coding, we will actually create the user viewer. Next will be the API URL, which is under our helpers. And this is basically our constant. We have the actual URL that we'll call for the RESTful API, which we'll be using the dummyjson.com, which is our API-based URL. And then the query URL is basically users want to return users. And we say we want to limit it 50. We only want 50 users that come back. Skip equals 0, which means we want to start at 0. Because you can also page this and say skip 0, skip 10, skip 20, skip 30, and it'll give you the next 10, 20, 30 that you need, in 10 increments or 5 increments, whatever you like. And then we have a select statement that says we only want these fields to be brought back. We don't want all the fields available, okay? In our case, it's the ID, first and last name, the email, university, and the image. And the last is the API base and query URL, which basically does what? A string manipulation, as you can see. It just takes the base URL and the API query URL and strings it together to make one API base and query URL string, which we will pass to the service to be able to retrieve our user's data. Last one is the models, right? Under users model. And let me just show you what the JSON sample file looks like. It has users, and as you see by the square brackets, it's a list of users. I wanted to put 2 samples here, and it brings back what the ID, first name, last, email, university, and image, right? And it also has information of how many users this query brought back, what needed to be skipped, and what the limit was, okay? So let's go back up here. Let's look at the first user model class. This it contains the list of users, right? Which is what? Right here. the list of these users, which is used by this class of users of the ID, the first last name, the email, the university, and the image. Okay. And then it has the from and to, also has a blank default value that we can also create a blank record here when we first load the application. We don't have any records yet, so we would have just a blank record. Okay. And then we have a from JSON and a to JSON, which in these applications we're not going to use, but I wanted to put it there for you guys to have. So basically the user model class has the list of those users, right? The user class I just showed you, and also those three other items, the total, the skip, and the limit. Excellent. This gives you a good overview of the starter project. Let's review what we have looked at. We reviewed the pubspec YAML file dependencies, importing the local shared package, how to declare dependencies to add images, by wildcard, of course. And we're going to review the imported user starter project, the main file, right, which has the light and dark mode and also the main page that you're going to start, which will be the viewer that will decide which layout to give, whether it's phone, tablet, or web. The helpers folder, which has the API URL defined for the RESTful calls. And the models folder, which has the user model classes and the sample JSON file, where we're going to be retrieving our data from. Now, up next, you'll be creating the services and pages for the user's project.